Hey everybody, welcome to another Edis video. On this particular session, we'll cover how to create forms. So creating forms is part of a series of videos on working with forms in Edis, where there's going to be a video on getting started with forms, how to do form analytics, how to have productivity with forms, how to connect forms to interventions, how to visualize forms from within student profiles. So there's a lot of different videos that we're going to do on the subject. On this particular one, we're going to cover creating a form. So what I want to do is I want to use an example I found online, guide you through the example, but please be aware that you guys can create your own forms. There's unlimited forms you can create, and you can always reach out to us if you want any training on helping you build forms. So without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and create a form. So what I've picked up is online I found a free resource where you can actually find a lot of different forms. So there's a parent-teacher conference forms that I found, and I wanted to use this one. So what I did is I took the fields for this particular form, created a document here so that it can act as my guide to build a form. And this is the form we're going to build. We're going to build a parent-teacher conference form for elementary students, and we're going to have all these different fields in the form. We're going to have a student, we're going to have a date, the grade level of the student, the absences, the behavior incidents, and this information is going to come from the data warehouse, and so it's going to be automatically pre-selected for me once I load the student. Then I'm going to list some strengths for the student. I'm going to list some concerns, and then I'm going to have additional notes. I'm going to have a field to record when is the next meeting date going to happen, and I'll also record who the staff member was in the meeting, and then I'm going to record a signature for the parent. So it's going to be a very basic type of form. Again, please please be aware that you guys can build your own. But let's go ahead and start. So I can go into my forms tab, and I can click on all forms, and this gives me access to the bank of forms in my district. So I can find here forms that are district official type of forms, and then I can also find forms that were built by teachers, so anybody can build forms in Edis. So I'm gonna go ahead and click create form, and I'm gonna say that this is the parent teacher conference form, and I'm gonna go and say that this is for elementary students. So the next thing is I have to select a focal point. In this particular case, my focal point is going to be a student, but please be aware that you can build forms for users, and you can build forms for interventions, or you can also do free forms. So I'm just going to head click a student, and I'm going to go in and just select the description. So I'm going to go ahead and copy text that I had here on my guide. So I'm going to say that this is the district official parent-teacher conference form for elementary students. So I'm going to say that this is official. Obviously, not everybody in the district has access to selecting a form as official. Only those folks who have the form's administration permissions. So this is, again, another topic to cover in a separate video. So I'm going to go ahead and create it. So I'm now in the form builder, and if you see here that what Edis did for me is it automatically selected the student field for me because I said that my focal point is a student. That means that I have to have a student field somewhere. We use the student field to be able to connect the form to the analytics component, to be able to connect the form to a student profile. So there's a lot of applications of actually having this particular student field in here. So the next thing is we want to have a date. So I'm going to go ahead and create the date. I'm going to say that this is date field. So there's a lot of different field types that we support. At some point, we're going to have a video just uncovering the different field types that we have. So for this particular case, I just need the date. I can have a minimum and maximum, which I'm not going to do just now, but I will select the default date. This is going to save me a lot of clicks because whenever I load a new entry, it's going to default the date to the current date. So I'm going to go ahead and also have some instructions in there, like for example, select the date the meeting took place. So if I say this is done, if you see here, it builds the date field, and it actually gives me the instruction in the bottom. So I can also go back here. Every time I hover my mouse on a particular field, I get the options on the right. I can delete the field, I can copy or duplicate the field, I can move it up and down, I can edit the field. So I'm going to go back and edit it because I'm going to say that this field is not only required, but this field is also unique. So what I mean by this is, by doing this, it means that the if you see this key icon in here, what this means is that the student and the same date cannot be found twice in the system. So this avoids duplicate of data, right? So we only have one parent-teacher conference per day, right, on a particular student. So it's very safe to say that we're going to avoid duplicates by having the combination of the student and the date be unique. So I'm going to go ahead and keep adding fields. So the next thing is I want to add the grade level for the student. But this is interesting because Edis already knows the grade level for a student, so I don't want the user to actually enter the grade level. It's going to save the user time, and it's always going to be right. So I'm going to go ahead and say that instead of having a date or a paragraph, I'm going to select a data point. So this now allows Edis to pull data from the data warehouse. So if I click on select data point, Edis is just basically scanning all the different current and historical data points across the district. So I know, for example, that in this particular case, my grade level, it's part of the demographic categories of the student, like the school, the gender of the students, the race, the ethnicity, where the student is on free and reduced lunch, where the student, it's not an English language speaking student. So there's a lot of demographic properties on the student. I'm just going to select the grade level. So I'm going to select it here, click on done. If you see here, I have the grade, and I'm going to say grade level. I can always override the name, and I'm going to click done. So if you see here, I now have the grade level. So that means that when I load the student, the grade level should come in automatically. So I'm going to keep adding data points in here, right? So the other data point that I want to add is the absences. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, you know what, give me the absences for the student. So now this number, this information is going to come in automatically when I load the student. So I'm going to add one more, and I'm going to click on data point again, and I think I'm going to bring the behavior incidents. So now the system is scanning all the possible data points across the installation, current and historical, and it's looking for anything that it's related to behavior. So it should give me a lot of different things, like behavior incidents, or if there was a behavior intervention at some point. So there's a lot of things that the system will track for me. So I'm just going to go easy and select the behavior incidents. So now this means that whenever I load a student, this information is going to come in automatically, right? So now we have the student, the date, the grade level, the absences, the behavior incidents. So now what we're going to do is we want to add these strengths. So I'm going to go ahead and add a field, and I'm going to select checkboxes because the student can have more than one strength. So I'm going to copy here from the guide document that I have in here, and I'm going to go, hey, the student, could be asking for help, completes homework daily, the student performs well on tests, and then I have the option of adding more. So I can just say, for example, the student gets along with others. And I can also have the option of having other strengths being recorded that are not perhaps pre-selected by the system. So I will add another field in here. And I'm going to say that this is a paragraph so that the users can write custom things. And I'm going to select other strengths. So I'm going to click on done. So if you see here, my form starts building, right? I have the strengths, I have all the strengths, and now I'm going to go ahead and add some concerns. So in order for me to do that, it's a great opportunity to show you an important feature that's going to make you more productive, which is duplicating a field. So I already have a field that I know it has 4 options, right? So I know my concerns are going to be very similar. So I can just go ahead and click on duplicate. And if I click here, done, if you see here, it duplicates the student, the field for me. So I can now move it down and edit it. If I edit it, I can go ahead and say, you know what, instead of a strength, this is going to be called concerns. And I'm just going to go with some pre-selected concerns that I have here in my guidance document. So complete homework, let's say minimal class participation, excessive talking, right? So let me see here, if I click done, if you see here, I have the concerns already listed here. So let me go ahead and duplicate this other strengths and call it other concerns. I'll move it down, and if you know here, there you go, I have almost, the form is almost built, right? So there's always a good practice to also have additional notes, which is something that I planned in my document, to have something for additional notes. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to add another field in here, and I'm going to say again that this is a paragraph, and I'm going to say additional notes. So I'm going to click here. If you notice here, I have the additional notes in there. And then the last, the other field that we needed to add is, when is the next meeting happening, right? So I'm going to add here another field. I'm going to say that this is a date, right? And I'm going to go next meeting date. And then I don't want to default it to the current date, because obviously, it's not going to work. So I'm just going to leave it blank, like there's no defaults in here, and you're not required to have a next meeting date. So I'm going to click on done, and now I have the form is almost done. I just need information on who was part of the meeting, and in order to do that, we can use the user field. So this is a field so that you can bring into any forms actual Edis users. So the importance of these is that instead of recording the name of the person, we are actually recording the ID of the person in Edis, right, that was part of the meeting. And that's really important because for analytics purposes, we do want to have access to that information. So I'm going to select the user field, and I'm going to go ahead and say, this is the staff member that was part of the meeting. And I'm going to say that this is required. So any field that is selected as required has the little star right next to it, right? So I'm going to go ahead and add one other field, and I'm going to go and say, I need the signature of the staff member. So staff member signature. Okay, I'm going to say that the signature is required. All right, and then finally, we're going to copy this one here, and we're going to go with the parent's signature. So let me see here. I'll save it. If you see here, I have the form. It's already built, right? The student, the date, they can only be found once, so they cannot be duplicated. I also have the grade level, the absences, the behavior incidents, which are going to come in automatically, right? I can highlight strengths. I can highlight concerns. I have the option of having additional notes when the next meeting is happening, who was participating in the meeting. So this is pretty much done. So I'm going to click on save. And now that form becomes part of the library of forms. So at any point in time, I can go into all forms. And if I click here, I can find the actual form. So just by searching, right? So if you see here, this is the one that I just built, right? And I can now have multiple options where I can fill in a new entry. I can view all the entries of the form, which obviously there's no entries just yet. I can lock the form if I need to. I can restrict it. I can make it unofficial. There's a lot of different things that I can do on the form, which we're going to cover in a future video. But hopefully you found this one helpful. That's how to create a form using Edis. Needless to say that this form, it's ready to be used anywhere in the software. And I think we're going to have a separate video just on how to complete a form in Edis, and we're going to use this parent-teacher conference form as an example. So that was creating a form in Edis. If you need any further assistance, you can use the contact information in the screen and reach out to us if you have a more complex form that you need to create and you might need our assistance. But other than that, enjoy your day, and we'll see you in the next Edis video. Thank you so much.